Hey folks, welcome to Unqualified, the fantasy football podcast that's been pouring their cereal in the bowl before the milk since 2017. I'm your producer, Rob Diesendorf, here with Sean Brady and Scott Johnson, or Scott Johnson and Sean Brady, however you want to say it, whoever you value more.
Thank you.
Two fantasy football rivals that have been sabotaging each other for years, but they decided to come together to help you win your league and make your friends look like idiots. How's it going, boys?
Excellent. I appreciate you putting both options out there. That was really nice.
Yeah.
Keep everybody happy here.
Yeah, Sean's just on this high perch over there with his name getting spewed out first every week.
That's what the people they want. They want options. They want to be able to choose.
Yeah, they want variety. I agree.
Even though they know Scott's better than Sean, sometimes they might want to go with Sean first because they might want to make him feel better, you know?
Ooh, I think Rob knows who's going to be mean to him this pod now.
better show host.
I already said I'm not going to be mean to you guys this time, so I guess it's Rob's turn. Someone's got to be mean. Got to give us an edge.
We got to have at least one mean person per episode.
That's fair enough. Sean, are you ever going to be the mean person?
I mean, I can do it if you want. I can play that role. The villain.
You're just so nice.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to hit you when you least expect it. Don't worry.
I don't like that, actually.
So, what happened in fantasy football this week? Or just football in general?
Football in general. Well, I want to talk about... First of all, we said like a couple weeks ago that the two teams that had their bye on week one, quote-unquote bye, the Miami Dolphins and Tampa Bay Bucks, have been out of sorts and pretty much continued. Dolphins look better with Jay Cutler, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are falling apart. And I have a hunch that it has something to do with them being on Hard Knocks this year. So I'm not going to get into too many particulars, but if you look at the LA Rams last year, who were the Hard Knocks show followed, they went 4-12. Jared Goff, their quarterback, looked terrible after they went on Hard Knocks. This year, the Bucks are 2-7. Jameis Winston looks terrible as well. So, coincidence? I don't know. Think not.
I don't know. I mean, let's look at the coaches of these two teams. This year, Dirk Koetter for Tampa Bay has just been not great, to put it mildly. And Jeff Fisher was actively terrible last year for the LA Rams.
So, it was always bad.
I think it's just something. I don't think good teams want to go on Hard Knocks. I don't think they really need it. I think it's kind of that lower middle class team that tends to go on Hard Knocks in the first place.
Like
so
the
that
Jets.
Like the Jets, exactly. I mean, we did have one good year, but I mean, I think the biggest thing is that you don't know if it's the Hard Knocks, choosing these teams or if it's actually a Hard Knocks curse. I tend to think it's just bad coaching, in my opinion, and leadership. We will get to Jameis later, but
yeah,
he's supposed to be their guy,
Juicy.
and he's just very off the mark.
Fakest leader.
Let's put it that way.
Can we say the fakest leader ever?
Just super phony, absolutely phony.
What was with that guy with the licking his fingers?
That was him.
Oh yeah, that's Jameis. Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that was weird.
Really
that
weird.
was really weird.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, look up Jameis Winston pregame huddle speech or something along those lines. And look up what he was doing before his game this week. It was the weirdest thing. The weirdest attempt at a pump up.
He was like, I only got one thing to say. And then he didn't say anything. He just stuck his fingers in his mouth. He was like...
and then his fingers
win.
looked like a W. Yeah, no. You want to eat a W? You want to eat a win? No.
Everyone's face just looked horrified, and they were all just silent, and he's just licking his fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird.
So
you
maybe
really
it is
know
that
your audience.
Yeah, maybe it's not a Hard Knocks curse. Maybe it's just Winston sucking this year.
Poor choice.
Well, I'm sure we'll get more into the Bucks later. My biggest takeaway is finally we've come to the end of the 6-team bye weeks. So we've had 2 weeks in a row with 6 NFL teams sitting out the week. And honestly, weeks 6 through 9 of the fantasy season are absolutely brutal. Usually in these weeks that we've just finally gotten through, people are forced to go with unknowns in their lineups just out of necessity. But now it's time to just trust your studs. I think you got to stick with guys like Kareem Hunt, Julio Jones, and Leonard Fournette. Those type of guys that you're counting on week to week and have probably let you down in the last couple weeks. You don't want to get cute now that you have all these options back off of their bye weeks. Obviously, there's still a couple teams on bye this week and next week, but stick with your studs because it's going to get tempting to, start some hotshot guy off waivers, but you got to really stick with the guys that are getting you to where you hopefully are, which is in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, having said that, let's talk about some injuries from Week 9. So a couple of huge injuries that happened right before Week 9, pretty much on that Thursday, Friday. One of the biggest, this guy was on a tear. Deshaun Watson, the quarterback of the Houston Texans, tore his ACL out for the year, which is
this one hurts.
Brutal. Yeah, 19 touchdowns through the air. I think it was an NFL record for the amount of games he was playing in his rookie year. So that's a really tough blow for that team.
I think I felt this one more than any other injury this year. I only had Deshaun Watson on one of my teams. I just really felt this as a fan of football. He was probably the most fun part of the NFL this year.
Yeah,
he's the only guy that I'm sure even if I didn't own him on one of my teams, I would be tuning into every Texans game just to see what he's doing. And the NFL loses yet another, I would call him a star at this point. He's still a rookie, but he's just a bona fide star.
Yeah, and it didn't really affect DeAndre Hopkins, his top wide receiver, that much this week without Deshaun Watson, but it did affect Will Fuller, the other wide receiver who's been on a tear. So that whole team is just downgraded completely. Another quarterback, Jameis Winston, like we were just talking about. He has an AC joint injury. He had it a couple weeks ago, but they just announced that they're going to shut him down for at least 2 weeks. So again, he had no bye week. It was week 1 basically. So he's been playing through. And Ryan Fitzpatrick will be the starter for the Tampa Bay Bucks for the next 2 weeks at least.
Oof.
Yeah, he just the last 3 out of 4 weeks he's had like 3 points each, so he hasn't really been getting you your QB1 numbers anyway. I
think we're out of necessity. We're going to talk about a couple wide receivers as our joint duds of the week, but I think I'm going to make the case for Jameis when we get there. Just an unimaginably bad week. This guy. We'll get to it.
We can make a gold, silver, and bronze dud.
For
this week if you want.
I like that.
We'll rank them because they were all terrible. Yeah. Couple other injuries. DeMarco Murray, the Tennessee running back, had a knee injury. Should be okay, but again, this guy's always hampered, and moving forward, he'll probably be a little hampered. Yep. Derrick Henry, his backup, looked pretty good and scored a touchdown. So be on the lookout for Murray. And then another injury out for the year. Pierre Garçon, San Francisco wide receiver, had a neck injury and was put on injured reserve on Friday. So anyone that's stepping up for him, maybe Marquise Goodwin, pick him up, but Pierre Garçon out for the year. All right, let's talk about Week 9 blue chip players, guys who won the week. Let's talk about the Blue Terra Chip Player of the Week. That award for Week 9 goes to T.Y. Hilton, Indianapolis Colts wide receiver. Had 9 targets, caught 5 of them for 175 yards and I believe 2 touchdowns. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah. I mean, this guy, he's getting it done without Andrew Luck, and, he's his old self. He's running after the catch. He's catching bombs. He made an incredible play where I think one of the Houston defenders forgot to touch him down, but still, I mean, it's a heads-up play by T.Y., and he's getting it done, again, without his quarterback. And I think this is the kind of thing we can expect from DeAndre Hopkins moving forward, too. Weeks where he's going to be a blue-chip guy, but also weeks where he's going to disappoint. This variance leads these guys to being kind of like that wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 tier, where it's, they're kind of 1 or 2 depending on your team construction. But there's probably, I can't think of one more wide receiver that's more fun to watch than T.Y. Hilton and DeAndre Hopkins. I'm kind of just really, getting my DeAndre Hopkins points in while we're supposed to be talking about Hilton, but I fucking love these guys. They're both phenomenal players.
Are you selling him high? So, like a couple of weeks ago, we said to sell T.Y. Hilton high because of the news of Andrew Luck being out for the year. The quarterback is Jacoby Brissett, who obviously doesn't have the deep arm that Andrew Luck has. But obviously, he's getting better. 5 receptions. He found T.Y. Hilton for 5 receptions, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. So, are you selling him high? Are you keeping Hilton? Plugging him into your lineup every week, obviously?
I think I'm keeping him. I think I'm keeping him just because his ceiling is so much higher than most other players in the entirety of fantasy football. I think if you're going down in a playoff stretch, obviously it's a high-risk move, but if T.Y. Hilton goes off and you're in a playoff week, you're making it to the next round, period. It doesn't matter who else is on your team. There's few guys in fantasy football that have that same ceiling, so I'd hang on to him personally.
Yeah, I would plug him in every week. It's kind of like the Amari Cooper syndrome, where he goes off for 210 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And you got to play him every week. Same with T.Y. Hilton. You got to play him every week and, ride the highs and lows. All right, quarterbacks. Let's talk about blue chip guys. Jared Goff had over 300 yards, 4 pass touchdowns, looking like a high-end QB2 perhaps, a solid bye-week filling guy. Good backup to have.
I definitely agree. I think he absolutely shredded the Giants, and we can give Sean McVay all the credit in the world, and he deserves it as, probably the coach of the year in my opinion. But Jared Goff, you can't take anything away from him this week. He absolutely lit them up.
Projected to have 26 touchdowns through the air this year. Big difference from 5 the year before in his rookie year.
Yeah.
So much better this year than last year. Tyrod Taylor, another blue chip for this week. 2 pass touchdowns, 1 rush touchdown. Again, looks like a high-end QB2, maybe a fringe QB1 guy, fringe starter.
Yeah, I agree. I think with Kelvin Benjamin getting added to the Bills, it only raises his ceiling. I think he's a top 10 quarterback now, just because of the floor that his legs give.
Yeah, and honestly, has Kelvin Benjamin coming into the fold. He didn't play on Thursday night because he was still pretty new. It was a midweek trade, but he also has Charles Clay, the tight end, who's been out for a while. He'll have him coming back within the next couple of weeks. So this team's, it was a bad week against the Jets, but hopefully with Benjamin and Clay back in the fold. They also have the wide receiver Deontay Thompson he came from the Bears this year, who's having some weeks there. He's got some pretty good weapons now. So yeah, fringe QB1 there, Tyrod Taylor. And then another guy, top 5 plug and play every single week. Carson Wentz, 4 pass touchdowns again. He's unbelievable this year. Even bigger step forward than Jared Goff from his rookie year.
Yeah, is he our number 1 call from the offseason? I think he is. I think he's just
for sure.
We said take this guy as your second quarterback, and right now he's probably the front runner for the MVP of the NFL. So that's just crazy.
8-1. That team is 8-1, and pretty much all due to him. Running backs, blue chips. Alvin Kamara, New Orleans running back, the backup to Mark Ingram, actually. 10 rushes, 68 yards, 1 touchdown, and then through the air, 7 targets, 6 catches, 84 yards, 1 touchdown. Is looking like a running back 2. I mean, these guys are both running back 1 and running back 2s here, respectively.
Yeah, I think Kamara is a running back 2 in standard, but he's a running back 1 in PPR. He is phenomenal. He catches the ball. He's dangerous in the running game, and he gets in the end zone. He's a total package.
Yeah. Matt Forte, maybe a guy that's not a running back 2 necessarily, or running back 1 in PPR. Back from the dead here. He had 2 touchdowns through the ground, and then 4 targets, 4 catches. So maybe in PPR leagues, he's looking like a running back 2 now, would you say?
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
Yep. And then high-end flex in regular leagues. But it's kind of a timeshare. He's getting most of the work. I mean, he's getting 65% of the work. Bilal Powell is getting 25, and then Elijah McGuire is getting the scraps there. But Matt Forte still looks like the front runner. The
issue, though, with Forte is, he's getting up there in age, and he has been banged up this year, and I think he'll probably will be pretty soon, too, if he keeps getting a big workload. So if the Jets can keep him healthy, I'd plug him into your lineup as a flex, but, you got to wonder how long it's going to last.
Right. Yeah. And then Corey Clement on the Philadelphia Eagles, the third string. I think he's technically 3rd or 4th string because they have Wendell Smallwood there. But 12 rushes, 51 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then had 1 target through the air. Honestly, people might add him this week, but you got to think about the depth chart there. They just traded for Jay Ajayi, who should be the starter.
He looked great. He looked
great. First touchdown of the year. It was a big one too, 40-something yarder. And then they have LeGarrette Blount still in the fold, who's like more of the goal line back now. The odd guy out looks like Wendell Smallwood, who got the least snaps that week. Corey Clement, I don't think you add him. I think maybe if one of those guys in front of him gets injured, then you add him. But I think it's just a waste of a roster spot. He's a 3rd string guy. And that was a lot of garbage time there. All right, wide receiver, blue chips. Again, T.Y. Hilton, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. Alshon Jeffrey had 2 touchdowns as well on 11 targets, looking like a solid wide receiver 2 at this point. Getting some rapport with Carson Wentz now finally.
Yeah, Zach Ertz being out really kind of opened things up for Alshon Jeffrey, even more than they already were. With Ertz back, it'll be a little less attention to him. I think he's good either way. I think Jeffrey should be locked into your lineups every week.
Sell high there? Maybe someone will think he's like a wide receiver 1 again?
I mean, he doesn't seem like he's ever going to top the like 125 yard mark this year, just based on how they use him. But he's, one of their red zone guys. They obviously love Ertz in the red zone. Maybe they start to run the ball in the red zone a little bit more than they have, but Jeffrey is he's just so physical and he's so good, and they're such a good offense. I think I'm sticking with Jeffrey.
Yeah, I agree. Another guy that's really stepping it up, Doug Baldwin on Seattle, 7 receptions, 108 yards, 1 touchdown on 12 targets. This guy's a target machine and looks like a solid wide receiver 1 now. He started the year slowly, but again, fully healthy now and really coming into his own.
Yep, I agree.
And then Terrence Williams on Dallas had 9 targets, 9 receptions, 141 yards. A couple of things here. The reason he did so well, Des Bryant got hurt and had to leave the game with an ankle injury, right? And then they were playing against Kansas City, and Kansas City's pass defense is not their strength. It's really a run defense. Is Terrence Williams worth a pickup? He's really the number 2 guy behind Des Bryant, but if Bryant is forced to miss time, Williams could have a lot of value.
Yeah, I think I'm going to monitor the situations of Dez and Zeke, because if one or both of them miss any time, I think the Cowboys are going to need to use Terrence Williams a lot more. And he's shown that he looked really good after the catch, which I think is something the Cowboys really lack in their offense. So, if Zeke does eventually get suspended and have it's upheld, and if Dez misses time due to injury, if either one of those two things happen, I would definitely pick up Terrence Williams just as kind of a shot in the dark.
Yeah, I agree. A tight end, not a great week, but a couple notables. Jared Cook on Oakland had 8 receptions, 126 yards, 9 targets. Fringe tight end 1, perhaps?
Yeah, it's such a thin position. I mean, now that people are coming off bye weeks, I think there will be a little less room in the top 10, but, Derek Carr clearly likes this guy enough. He's topped the 100-yard mark twice this year, which is very rare this year for tight ends. So I would consider him a top 10 guy. Again, he does not excite me at all, but it's so thin at the position that you could probably do worse.
Another guy that you probably won't pick up and is not a top 10 guy, but again, it's a very thin position, and maybe this is a guy to be on the lookout for. Julius Thomas on Miami Dolphins. 6 receptions, 84 yards, 1 touchdown on 8 targets. Probably a tight end 2 right now, and I don't think he's worth an ad, but if he has some consistency and does well next week with at least 50 yards or another touchdown, then I would add him. And looks like a tight end, high-end tight end too.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Defenses and kickers. The Saints defense has been incredibly. A lot of double-digit games lately. 19 points this week. Honestly, they've really turned it around from their shitty, putrid weeks 1 through 4. So pick them up. And then the Jaguars, number 1 defense, looks like it's going to continue that way the whole year. 14 points this week. Kickers, Greg Legatron Zerline, 17 points off the bye. This guy's unreal.
He's incredible.
Literally a Legatron. Another guy that hasn't done well all year that we said was kind of brutal. Brandon McManus on Denver had 15 points. Maybe turning it around, you think? He had 2 solid weeks in a row where he didn't miss a field goal or an extra point, so could be a pickup.
We know 2 things about a Brock Osweiler-led offense. They're going to feature the tight end and the kicker. Those are going to be the 2 most important positions. So don't get excited about the running backs or wide receivers in Denver unless, they make a QB change. But I guess McManus is worth a pickup because they're not getting in the end zone.
Yeah, all those inefficiencies. It's good for kickers.
All right, so those are the blue chip guys who helped you win in week 9. This week's a little special in the dud column. We have some exceptional negative performances here. I'm going to highlight 3, and me and Scott are going to rank them from bronze to gold. Gold being the most dud-esque performance, the absolute worst performance. The 3 guys in question are Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Jameis Winston, his wide receiver Mike Evans, and Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver AJ Green. Oh boy. So let's start with Jameis. I'm going to nominate him for the gold medal dud performance of the week. This guy only had 3 fantasy points. He got hurt. He started a fight that got his wide receiver Mike Evans ejected from the game. Oh, no. Didn't get him ejected, but got him suspended. For next week. Mm-hmm. And on top of all that, gave probably the worst pump-up speech I've ever heard in my entire life. We mentioned that at the beginning of the pod. I don't think it gets much worse. That's an absolute trifecta of just negativity. This guy
he takes the gold for sure.
Yeah, I think he's the gold right there, and I think if he doesn't provoke Marshawn Lattimore, I don't think that Mike Evans gets in that scrap and gets himself suspended next week. Jameis has been kind of a letdown the entire year, so this has been a long time coming. I think our gold medal dud of the week is Jameis Winston. What do you think?
Congratulations, Jameis. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Well
all right, ready? Week 6, 7, 8, 9 in this order. Fantasy points for Jameis Winston. 2.4, 23.4, 3.7, 3.5. So keep in mind, he only played in 2 full games there. But that's just not, you can't, that's not even QB2 there. Like, Brett Hundley on Green Bay was doing better than that.
Even that, like, you can give that qualifier that he only played in 2 full games, but you probably started him if you had him because he went into the game playing the game. So
yeah,
if this guy's not going to finish games for you, you can't put him in your lineup. He might be droppable now that we know he's going to miss the next couple weeks. This might be rock bottom for this guy.
Yeah, my suspicion is they're going to keep him out for like at least a month, and then if they see the season is tanking, they're going to keep him out the whole rest of the year. Let him rest.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I'd say he has gold. My next nominee for silver is going to be Mike Evans. I think he had 6 targets. Yep, 6 targets, 1 reception, 13 yards. He's only projected to barely reach 1,000 yards this year. Projected to get like 6 touchdowns. And yes, Jameis Winston pretty much started that brawl with Marshawn Lattimore, but Mike Evans did not have to literally knock that guy out from behind. And now he's suspended for another week, so he's just not looking like a wide receiver. He's not looking like a top 5 wide receiver 1. He's looking like a low-end wide receiver 1 at this point. So I think he takes the silver. Can we agree on that?
No, we definitely agree on that because at least with AJ Green, it was, just based on my knowledge of Jalen Ramsey as a player, he was absolutely provoked there. And again, like it's a little different. Mike Evans probably could have ended Marshawn Lattimore's career if you hit him wrong there because he hit him square in the back. AJ Green just kind of got in a scuffle with the cornerback covering him the whole game, which we've seen before. Obviously it's not ideal or even excusable, but at least it's something we've seen before. Mike Evans just kind of took things way too far there.
Yeah.
That being said, AJ Green is absolutely a dud of the week. Don't get us wrong here. This guy had, again, 2 targets, 1 catch, 6 yards, and then he got ejected for fighting with Jalen Ramsey, who, if nothing else, took this guy out of the game, which is what he's pretty much paid to do. So AJ Green let his temper get the best of him, which we haven't really seen before from him. So I'm willing to give him a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt, and he's going to get our bronze medal here. What do you think?
Yep, still bronze. Still a dud of the week.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, now that we got that out of the way, let's get to the rest of the guys here pretty quickly. Kirk Cousins actually played well against Seattle, led them to a win there, but fantasy-wise, didn't get it done. He only had 247 yards, no touchdowns. He's still like a low-end QB1, but this is back-to-back weeks where he has, I think, scored single digits. That's not cutting it. And then Andy Dalton, we weren't really high on this guy in the first place, but under 150 yards, no touchdowns. He's a middling QB2. I don't even know if I trust him as a bye-week fill-in. Let's talk about Kirk real quick. What do you make of this Washington offense? I know there's guys out, but how do you trust Kirk moving forward?
Yeah, Kirk doesn't have a number 1 wide receiver, right? We thought Terrell Pryor was going to be the guy coming into the season. He's not. He's barely on the field. Then we thought Josh Doxson, their first-round pick from a year ago, was going to come into his own this year. He really hasn't. It hasn't materialized. We thought Jamison Crowder might be his number 1 option in the slot. That hasn't happened. And really, Kirk's value is coming from throwing dump offs to Chris Thompson and also the tight ends Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis. And if one or 2 of those guys are hampered, which happened with Jordan Reed, Kirk's not going to have a good day. So I think he's a fringe QB1. You kind of have to start him if you have him, but if you have a backup, maybe like a Marcus Mariota who's kind of coming into his own, I would play him over Kirk or think about it.
Read my mind. That's my QB situation right there. So
there you go.
I agree with you. I think Mariota, again, offers a little bit more. I think he has a higher floor and a higher ceiling at this point in the season than Kirk Cousins. So
I agree.
I would go with that switch and without even thinking twice about it. Let's get to the running backs. This guy in another week would have definitely been our dud of the week, but this obviously was an exceptional week in this regard. Leonard Fournette didn't play in Jacksonville's win this week. He was suspended by head coach Doug Marrone for this one game for repeatedly violating team rules. I think he didn't show up to their picture, which I mean obviously
and a treatment
is kind of minuscule. But again, if it's a repeated thing, Jacksonville's made one thing clear: they're setting a culture there, kind of like the Bills are. They're setting guys straight, and if they can't set them straight, they're shipping them out. I don't think they're going to get rid of Leonard Fournette, obviously. But, they're really sending a message here, and I kind of like the move by Doug Marrone. I think it's a brilliant move to say, look, this guy's our best player, but he's not above the team. Great move there. Leonard Fournette, you got to shape up, buddy. Let's go. Let's get back to your running back one day ways next week.
Yeah, and that offensive line, that team showed they didn't really quick. Sorry, they showed they didn't really need him, right? Because Chris Ivory did pretty well, 20 rushes, 70 yards, not bad. But the last 2 weeks before the bye, Chris Ivory did pretty well. Also, TJ Yeldon, 1 week had 9 rushes for 120 yards. So that offensive line is actually really good. That identity is defense. That team's identity is defense and running. So for Doug Marrone, the head coach, to bench Fournette and say shape up or get out, that's awesome. They didn't really need him. I mean, he's an unbelievable player, but they could still win without him.
It's almost like a Cowboys type of infrastructure where we saw Darren McFadden have a great year behind that offensive line. It's kind of similar. They're just building a sustainable system that works with any player. And obviously, when you add a transcendent talent like Leonard Fournette or Zeke to that equation, it's magic. But it can still work even if that guy's not there, which I think is very interesting.
Or like D'Angelo Williams when he was on Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
when Le'Veon Bell was suspended, he still had top 5 games. Same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that I think we're going to look for next year. Teams that are building, systems that can work with any player, and then adding some talent to that equation. I think that's something, obviously, we'll talk more about in the offseason. But let's get back to these duds. LaShawn McCoy, big letdown this week. 12 carries for 25 yards. Had 1 target in the passing game, but no catches. He's still running back 1 for me. I think honestly, the Bills were overmatched by a really good Jets defense and surprisingly good Jets team. So, we'll get to him in a minute, but LeGarrette Blount let us down again. J.J. entering the equation there, and Chris Clement having a great week. Blount kind of got lost in the shuffle. DeMarco Murray, as we mentioned, was hampered. Had 9 rushes for only 19 yards, and Derrick Henry played well, so not looking great there for him. Doug Martin put up a big fat donut in terms of fantasy points. Tampa Bay was just off the entire game against the Saints, so let's chalk it up to that. And then C.J. Anderson, another disappointing week, 9 rushes for 13 yards, 1 target, no catches. He's kind of a flex guy. Let's look at, I think we agree that McCoy is fine, but between Blount, Martin, and C.J. Anderson, which one of those guys do you think has the ability to bounce back moving forward?
It's so tough to say. I would say it's between Doug Martin and C.J. Anderson. C.J. Anderson has shown flashes in his career, but and it's true. When they give him the ball and he has over 100 yards, their record is so much better than when he doesn't have 100 yards. It's almost that simple. So when they put an emphasis on the run game, they're going to win that game. It's just they don't do it enough for some reason. And maybe it's the defense that's really faltering lately. I think a lot of it has to do with that passing offense. They just can't get the ball deep and get that 8 or 9 man boxes out. So I would say Doug Martin probably has the best chance for a turnaround, but I mean, that's barely saying anything there. He hasn't had a great year either.
Yeah, I agree. I think Brock Osweiler, when he's your quarterback, you're going to see a lot of 8 and sometimes even 9-man boxes, with the defensive front. So it's going to be really tough for C.J. Anderson to get going there. Let's talk about the wide receivers. We obviously talked about A.J. Green and Mike Evans, but Terrell Pryor, again, I mean, this might be the last week that we mention him here because it's kind of more the rule than the exception, but 3 targets, 2 catches, 17 yards. You throw him on your bench, maybe cut him depending on who you're trying to pick up. And then Emmanuel Sanders, one of our favorites.
Fuck this guy.
5 targets, 1 catch for 30 yards. Obviously he's coming back off an injury, but with Brock Osweiler throwing him the ball, I don't think we even need to elaborate. I wouldn't trust this guy in your lineup.
Nope. Easy, simple.
All right, tight end. This has been just kind of depressing to talk about all season long. Cameron Brate, again, the Tampa Bay offense was just abysmal, so we won't even really get into that. Austin Seferian-Jenkins had a quiet game, 2 catches for 20 yards. I still kind of trust him as a low-end tight end 1, and then Ed Dickson got blanked for the Carolina Panthers. Had 2 targets but no catches. Just a really thin position group. I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of just like a gamble week to week. I think we agree on Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He's a guy that you kind of have to play every week, but what kind of alternative would you turn to if you don't trust ASJ moving forward?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I would look at like a Tyler Kroft on Cincinnati. As a backup. You got to check out Jordan Reed's injury, but I would pick up Vernon Davis, who is Jordan Reed's backup, if you needed a replacement. Honestly, I wouldn't worry about Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He hasn't had a lot of yardage in each game, but I think he had a touchdown, called back for a holding play. So Josh McCown, the Jets quarterback, is still looking for him in the end zone. He's still looking for him as a big target. And Buffalo's defense is really good on Thursday night, so I'm going to chalk it up to that. I would still look at Austin Seferian-Jenkins as a low-end tight end 1. If you need some additional help, though, I would look at Tyler Kroft. I would also, most of your league mates probably dropped him already, but Greg Olsen looks like he's coming back in 2 weeks. So maybe do a speculative ad on Greg Olsen. And
wow, I like that.
Yeah, and just roll the dice with Seferian-Jenkins for the next 2 weeks,
Yeah, if you could spare that roster space, it's definitely a good time to take a chance on a guy like Greg Olsen, who maybe he won't come back like we think he will. He might be hampered coming back, but you could do a lot better than the guys that we're currently playing at the tight end position. So take a shot on Olsen. Let's wrap up with some defense and kickers who let us down. The Giants, I mean, they had negative 10 fantasy points. They got, I think that's the lowest total of the year for anything.
Seems like it. I haven't seen double-digit negatives yet.
I mean, they just got absolutely lit up. We can't even talk about it enough.
Bad.
Real quick, I mean, I'll elaborate here. It was my mom's birthday on Sunday, and me and her have kind of bonded this year over the fact that Dunkin' gives you $1 iced coffee or hot coffee if you want that. If the Jets or Giants win on Sunday, you can get that on Monday. You get the nice deal. So she's always asking me how are the Jets and Giants doing? The Jets obviously won on Thursday, so we got it on Friday. But for my mom's birthday, the Giants couldn't put up any fight for her. Let Mama Brady down. That's just brutal. Me? They didn't even show up to their home field game against the Rams. So
this is rude.
Again, in another week, this might have been our dud of the week, but it's just a crazy bad week for certain teams. The Chiefs, had a negative game too. They went -1. And then Blair Walsh, oh my God, missed 3 field goals for the Seahawks. I think you might want to elaborate on this. You just hate Seattle kickers, so let's hear
Seattle
what you guys
kickers
say.
Is the worst position group in all football ever. Steven Hauschka a couple years ago was a Seattle kicker, and he ended up missing 6 field goals all year, but he missed 3 in one game, and it happened to be the championship week that I played against Mormon in our league. So Seattle's kickers can all go to hell. Blair
Walsh, step up, my friend. Harrison Butker, the butt kicker, had a kind of a down week too. Only 5 fantasy points after being phenomenal. I think he's still someone we trust moving forward. And again, I just love these kicker nicknames. So definitely get a guy like Harrison Butt Kicker or Greg Legatron Zerline.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And drop Steven Hauschka and drop Blair Walsh.
Yeah. Drop any Seattle kicker. Anyone they sign, drop them.
Yeah, I have some nicknames for them if you want to hear them.
Oh, I don't know if there's people that might have children listening here.
Nope, no one wants to hear that. Them. Nope.
All right, so that wraps it up for our duds. It was an especially negative week. I don't think we've ever had this many terrible performances in one week. This is going to go down in history, I think. Week 9, 2017.
You heard it here first. All right, let's talk about waiver wire guys. Guys to pick up for week 9 or week 10 rather, and moving forward. Couple of guys that we want to highlight. I want to talk about my first ad, Marquise Goodwin, San Francisco wide receiver. Obviously, we know that Pierre Garçon, the de facto number 1 for a while, is on the IR now. So now the de facto number 1 is going to be Marquise Goodwin. Only had 2 catches for 68 yards in week 9, but again, he had 8 targets. He's going to be the number 1 guy. So speculative ad for him. I wouldn't put him in your lineups yet, but put him on your bench. And then another guy I'd pick up, my number 2 ad for week 10 and moving forward, the tight end on Houston, CJ Fedorowicz. So obviously we know Tom Savage is their quarterback now. CJ Fedorowicz is coming back from his concussion as early as week 10. So if you need some tight end help, maybe you had an Austin Seferian-Jenkins who's doing okay. Maybe you have Cameron Brate, who just had a bad week. Do a speculative ad for CJ Fedorowicz. Could have some value coming back from a concussion as early as week 10 or week 11.
Yeah, I like both of those. I especially like Goodwin with Jimmy Garoppolo possibly taking over next week, maybe the next couple weeks for the 49ers. I think that only raises his ceiling. My number one ad is a guy that we highlighted as our Hail Mary last week, Robert Woods. And I think us coming together on the Hail Mary section really led to some great results. This guy he caught 4 or 5 targets for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Giants. I would definitely add this guy. I think it was encouraging to see Sammy Watkins, get on the score sheet again. But unlike Sammy Watkins' kind of free access touchdown, Robert Woods had to work, and he's just a really good receiver. He's a very underrated player, and he's outside of Todd Gurley, Robert Woods is probably the most explosive option they have in their offense. So definitely pick this guy up. I think he is not necessarily a guy you're going to plug right into your lineup, but I would just make sure that if this guy keeps it up, you don't want to be the one that kind of passed up on him. My second guy is Miami Dolphins running back 1 now at this point after they got rid of J.J. Kenyon Drake. He had 9 carries for 69 yards in week 9, and then he also added 6 catches for 36 yards. The guy put up 100 scrimmage yards in his first week as the number 1 guy. I think running backs are tough to come by at this point in the year, so definitely pick this guy up if you need running back help.
Yeah, a couple things on those guys too. Robert Woods was a 2nd-round pick in the NFL draft out of USC, so he's got the high pedigree there, and he seems like he has Goff's trust now more than Sammy Watkins at least. And then one thing about Kenyon Drake, his backup or pass catching guy is Damian Williams. The only thing about Kenyon Drake is he had a lost fumble. So if that's going to be something that persists, he might get benched in favor of Damian Williams, but still 100 scrimmage yards on 12 touches is pretty good. So I agree with that. Guys that are likely cuttable in redraft. So you're picking up guys, you got to drop some guys. Terrell Pryor, again, if you have the depth to keep him on your bench, go for it. If not, you could drop him. 2 catches for 17 yards is not what you're looking for when you drafted him. Andy Dalton, the quarterback on the Cincinnati Bengals, another guy to drop. We just mentioned it before. It's up to you, but Jameis Winston, I know I'm going to drop him in one of my leagues because I need another quarterback in that league. And then a couple of running backs. Wendell Smallwood, who's now looks like number 4 on the Philadelphia running back depth chart. And then Elijah McGuire on the Jets looks like the 3rd guy. And Matt Forte and Bilal Powell are doing pretty well. So, Elijah, see you later. A couple of buy low targets. Basically running backs that aren't doing as well in like these past couple of weeks, but probably will do better. Kareem Hunt on Kansas City. They just don't give him the ball enough. They have a bye next week, but he only got 9 rushes this past week in week 9. Got to buy low on. I think you can.
They'll get it right.
Yeah, hopefully. He might be banged up a little bit too. You never know. LaShawn McCoy only had 25 yards against the Jets. Another guy to maybe make a move on. Maybe you have a frustrated owner there. And then Jay Ajayi had a touchdown finally, but not as many carries in his Philadelphia debut, but should increase and looks like he could be a top 10 play in that offense. So another guy to buy low on. And then sell high. We got Sammy Watkins, only had 2 targets. One of them was a big touchdown catch. I think you could sell him high to someone that needs a wide receiver or thinks they need a wide receiver.
I definitely agree. I mean, this guy, his touchdown was like, he basically jogged down the middle of the field and just caught the ball.
Giants look like they gave up, honestly.
Exactly. So I agree. People are going to look at the numbers and say, oh, Sammy Watkins might be breaking out. Not necessarily. No. I mean, outside of that play, he did nothing. So, I would definitely try to ship him off if I could.
Yeah. 2 other guys that you could, we already mentioned these guys. You can make a case to sell them high. I think we both personally would not. T.Y. Hilton on the Indianapolis and then Alshon Jeffrey on Philly. They both did really well. 2 touchdowns each. They have pretty good chemistry now that's built up with both their quarterbacks. So, again, you can make the case to sell them high. They're not going to get 2 touchdowns every week, but we're both saying, to keep them. And then 2 other guys to sell high, potentially. Matt Forte, 2 touchdowns rushing on 14 carries. He still has Bilal Powell behind him. I don't know. Just doesn't seem like he's going to sustain that. And then another guy, Adrian Peterson, had 37 rushes and got 159 yards, but he needed 37 rushes to get there.
Yeah.
And they're not going to play San Francisco every week, so they're going to have tougher matchups moving forward.
Yeah, I'm with that.
One new segment before we move on to our Week 10 preview. New segment, stock market. So we're going to highlight a couple of guys in each position with their stock rising or their stock falling. Make it simple for the listeners.
Yeah. Let's look at the quarterbacks right off the bat. Two guys that I think are rising, and I think it's for similar reasons, are Buffalo Bills quarterback Tyrod Taylor and Tennessee Titans quarterback Marcus Mariota. These are two guys that have a high ceiling because of their running ability, and they're getting pass catching talent added to their team, or they're getting guys back from injury, or both in Tyrod's case. So I think these guys are going to see their ceilings rise as well. I think these are two guys that are definite QB1s for me, just because they're a really nice blend of ceiling and floor.
Yeah, running backs, stock rising. Alvin Kamara on New Orleans. Again, he had a rushing touchdown. He had a receiving touchdown. He is the number 2 guy behind Mark Ingram, but this backfield can sustain 2 guys. And Alvin Kamara has shown in PPR leagues, he's at the very least a running back 2. And constantly is rising. His old teammate, Adrian Peterson, on Arizona now. Again, they're not going to play San Francisco every week. San Francisco was literally the worst rush defense in the league. But again, Adrian Peterson did better than he did in Week 8. Week 8, he only had 20 yards rushing, and this week he had 159. So stock rising there too. Could sell him high as well.
Yeah, and in the wide receiver department, Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey is turning into kind of the 1B option in the Philadelphia passing game to Zach Ertz's 1A. But if Ertz is still hampered moving forward, Jeffrey's the guy there. So I trust this guy personally as a wide receiver 2, maybe even a low-end wide receiver 1, depending on your team. And I would stick with him. And then Sterling Shepard is just kind of like the last of the Mohicans there in the Giants passing game. It's him and Evan Ingram and a whole bunch of nothing. So I think he's someone that you probably are plugging into your lineup as either a flex or maybe even a wide receiver 2. So I really like him as well too.
Especially in PPR, yeah. And then tight ends, stock rising. Jack Doyle on Indianapolis, again, showing great chemistry with Jacoby Brissett. Brissett's finally leaning on Jack Doyle, and he looks fully healthy now. He had 8 catches, so again, this guy has 20 catches in the last 2 weeks. I think he's a tight end 1, pretty locked in there. And then Jared Cook on Oakland, 9 targets, 8 catches this past week. Again, stock rising there. He's cutting down on the drops. Derek Carr, their quarterback, looks better. So that team as a whole looks better, especially Jared Cook.
Let's look at the guys that stock are falling now. And these 2 quarterbacks are guys we've talked about already on the podcast, so we're not going to elaborate. But Jameis Winston and Kirk Cousins. Obviously, Jameis is a guy that's borderline droppable now. Kirk is a guy that you probably have to stick with, but the signs are not looking good out of Washington. I think the arrows are pointing downward there.
Yep. 2 running backs. Again, we mentioned C.J. Anderson. That team just needs to get them the ball more, and they're just not.
Definitely.
Yeah. And definitely. The the running back that I feels like they want to give the ball to more is Devontae Booker, who's basically the third guy, but he's the third down back. And when they're down, they're throwing it, obviously, and they're throwing it to Jamal Charles or Devontae Booker, who were on the field more than Anderson at that time. So, and then another guy, stock falling, not too bad, but LaShawn McCoy didn't do anything against the Jets defense and kind of should have. So again, good chance to buy him low if someone's freaking out about him, and his stock should be fine, but maybe a low-end running back 1 for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I even like him as like a top 5 running back 1. I think this is probably just a blip in the radar for him. He's looked phenomenal the last couple of weeks outside of week 9. So, if someone sees his stock as like, trending down a lot and wants to get rid of him, this again is probably one of our biggest buy low targets for this week. The wide receivers for stock falling. Mike Evans, we already talked about too. He's going to be out next week on, suspended. So not looking great there, and hasn't really been playing to his potential either. And then Jordy Nelson, who has looked all right on Monday Night Football so far, but again, missing Aaron Rodgers there, he's just kind of taken a big hit in his production.
Yep, I agree. Tight ends, Cameron Brate on Tampa Bay only had 1 catch, so a little aberration there. He's been doing pretty well all year, but that team just looks off. Hopefully, he gets some chemistry with Ryan Fitzpatrick the next 2 weeks, but not looking good with a backup quarterback there. And then Austin Seferian-Jenkins, only 2 catches, 20 yards, but again, yardage is not his real MO. He's getting a lot of touchdowns usually, so should be good as a low-end tight end 1 for the rest of the year. All right, let's get into Week 10 preview. Would you rather? Before we get into that, teams on bye for Week 10. Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs, Oakland Raiders, and the Philadelphia Eagles. So not 6 teams again, but these are 4 pretty solid teams.
Yeah.
So get all those out of your lineups. Would you rather? You know the drill. We're talking about each position. We're talking about good, moderate, bad matchups, and then we got a wild card. Would you rather in there as well? So quarterback, good matchup for Week 10. Jared Goff versus Houston, or Matt Ryan versus Dallas.
Coming into this year, I never thought I would say this. I will take Jared Goff over Matt Ryan this week. Outside of a couple of big plays, Dallas kind of slowed down Alex Smith last week, and Matt Ryan's looked off. Jared Goff lit up the Giants. Houston just got lit up by Indy's passing offense. So give me Jared Goff over Matt Ryan this week.
Yeah, I don't think that. Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing for those reasons. Literally took words right out of my mouth. Houston did terribly against Jacoby Brissett. And yes, his name is Jacoby Brissett. And this is Jared Goff, who's better than Jacoby Brissett. He's not going to get 4 touchdowns again, but I could see a 3-touchdown game and 300 yards again against Houston. Moderate matchup, Josh McCown at Tampa Bay, his old stomping grounds, or Marcus Mariota versus Cincinnati.
Ooh, this is tough. I like Mariota moving forward, but I think McCown I think the Jets are going to light up Tampa Bay. Like, is that crazy? I think the Jets are going to crush them this week.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to take. God, this is a tough one. I'm actually going to take Mariota versus Cincinnati. I just think he has so many weapons now. Corey Davis, his first round pick, is back. Josh McCown has been getting sort of lucky. Like, he's gotten a lot of rushing TDs this year, and like last week only had 140 yards through the air or something like that. So I don't think Tampa Bay is a good defense by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Mariota will have more overall value.
Yeah, I trust Mariota a lot more, but I'm just excited. I'm excited by what the Jets are probably going to do to Tampa Bay this week.
Salivating. Bad matchup, Tyrod Taylor versus New Orleans, or Drew Brees at Buffalo. These guys are playing each other.
Oh, this is tough. 2 very different styles of fantasy quarterback. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with Drew Brees just based on kind of tradition. But I could definitely see Tyrod Taylor having a good game. New Orleans defense has been good, though, so I'll go with Drew Brees.
I'm going to go with Tyrod Taylor because I think New Orleans rushing offense is so much better than in previous years. They haven't had to rely on Drew Brees as much, and it kind of shows in his stats. He's projected to throw under 30 touchdowns for the first time. If that happens, it's the first time since 2007. He's always had more than 28 touchdowns, and he's projected less this year. And that's just due to their rushing attack. So I feel this game, it feels like it's going to be New Orleans rushing, getting up early, and then Tyrod Taylor trying to play catch up there. So with Kelvin Benjamin, his new target, I'll take Tyrod Taylor, but it's pretty close.
All right, and the wild card. Would you rather skydive into the middle of the ocean or into the middle of the jungle?
Oh, boy.
Tough choice.
I think the jungle. Jungle off the top of my head.
I'm going to go jungle because the ocean scares the shit out of me.
Really?
Like,
yeah,
there could be... Yeah, we've only discovered... How much have we discovered of the ocean? It's like 14%.
Yeah, but you'd be on top of the
isn't
ocean. You'd be on the top, not the bottom. The bottom's the
but
scary part.
Anything could be... Yeah, but anything could be under you. They could just swim up. Like, there could be a huge... like, Loch Ness Monster. Like, there could be an actual Loch Ness Monster.
I'd be more scared of a shark.
Do we
than
know?
A mysterious mythical creature, but...
All right, well, they're both in the ocean, and the jungle, I can see everything in there. It's like
Can
leopards,
you, though? But what if there's a fucking lion or a tiger and it just comes at you?
Yeah, but what if there's like what if there's a 30-foot shark that comes up that you can't see it until like the last second and chomps your leg off?
Go ahead, Sean.
We're built to like survive on land. We're not built to be, hanging out in the ocean for a long time. I agree with Scott here. I think worst case in the jungle, you have like a lion coming after you. You could at least like fashion a weapon and like try to run away. You can't swim away from a shark in the middle of the ocean.
I have something to say. I just Googled how much of the ocean is unexplored, and it says 95%.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
That's unexplored.
That's not good.
That's insane. And 99% of the ocean floor is unexplored.
Oh, no.
No, fuck that. I'm taking the
Yeah,
jungle.
no thanks. I agree with Scott here.
Okay.
You can change your mind?
I was just playing devil's advocate, but I think I'd probably go with jungle also.
All right. Of course you would. All right, we agree. We want to get skydive into the jungle. Good. All right, running backs. Would you rather? Good matchup. Orleans Darkwa, the New York Giants running back, at San Francisco, or Alfred Morris, Dallas running back, at Atlanta?
Oh man, I'm assuming that this is written based on Zeke being suspended,
Yes,
but I honestly
exactly.
have lost all hope of any justice, being upheld in that case. I think Zeke is probably going to just keep finagling his way into the lineup.
So annoying.
I think Orleans Dark was a nice option this week at San Francisco. Just San Francisco's defense, run defense in particular, has been atrocious. So I'll go with Orleans Darkwa here.
Yeah, I'm going Darkwa. In the last 4 weeks, he's averaged about 12 points a game, so like sneakily, because they had to buy like in the middle of that. But Darkwa's actually had a pretty good like end of the season here, so I'm going to take him against the worst rush defense. And I don't know if Alfred Morris is going to get the most carries there, or if it's going to be Darren McFadden. Who knows? Moderate matchup: Frank Gore, the Indianapolis running back, versus Pittsburgh, or Matt Forte, the New York Giants running back, at Tampa Bay.
I'll take Forte as long as he's healthy. I think he's a solid option. He's kind of like at this point, both these guys are like fantasy zombies at this point. Like we don't even know how they're still
Yeah, they
upright
are.
as opposed to
That's
being
kind of why I
productive.
put
But
them.
Forte kind of like floats around the field and just makes plays. So I'll take him this week.
It's such a tough one. I'm gonna go Gore. Gore has been so much more consistent, I feel like. I mean, the thing with Matt Forte is he's never really as 100% healthy. When he is, he does pretty well, but they still have Bilal Powell there. I know we said Elijah McGuire is the third string guy, but he still gets an annoying amount of carries to like vulture from both of them. So I'll take Frank Gore. He's just been really consistent this year, and he is a fantasy zombie through and through. Bad matchup: Adrian Peterson, the Arizona Cardinals running back, versus Seattle, or Joe Mixon, the Cincinnati Bengals running back, at Tennessee.
Oh man, I don't like either of these matchups. I think if I had both, I would sit them. I'll go with Mixon just based on the fact that Peterson needed a ton of work to get to 159 yards this week. People are gonna like salivate over that total, but Mixon has been like kind of quietly productive the last couple weeks, and obviously is leaving a lot to be desired. But Tennessee is not a great team in general, so I think he'll have a little bit more success than Peterson.
I'm going to go Peterson just because Seattle has been kind of weird this year, meaning like they almost lose games that they should win. Like they should have beaten Washington pretty handily, and they're so inconsistent. And it kind of starts with the defense. So it feels like Adrian Peterson could have an okay game there, and just better than Joe Mixon. I mean, if Joe Mixon doesn't get a touchdown, he's averaging like 2.6 yards a carry. It feels like. So I just think Adrian Peterson will do better. And actually, Joe Mixon is averaging 2.9 yards a carry all year. So,
Oof.
no, that's terrible.
All right.
Yeah.
And the wild card. Would you rather take a bath in stinging jellyfish or eat a cockroach? One. Just one. One cockroach. Just one cockroach.
Just one cockroach?
Lots of jellyfish.
Is it alive?
That are going to sting the shit out of you, but just one cockroach. Yeah, of course it's alive.
Is
They
the
never
cockroach
die.
alive? Where do you find
Have you
the
ever seen
cockroach?
a dead
like on the
cockroach?
streets of Manhattan?
Yeah, cockroaches
No.
they're indestructible, right? So I think I
Yeah.
kind of based on that have to go with the bath and stinging jellyfish. As much as that sucks, like believe me, I know how much that sucks, but like the cockroach is going to live. Like you're going to
Think
eat
about
it.
it.
but it's gonna be
Really
alive.
think about it. Like, put yourself in the situation.
How long is this bath? I was
don't
like
know.
asking questions.
I don't know if there's a time limit.
Like
Can you give me a time?
Like a
normal,
2-minute bath.
normal time of a bath.
Can you be
that's
wearing a
long
bathing
time.
suit?
No.
You got to go
You
naked?
it's a bath.
What
are you, a nerd?
How bad are these jellyfish? Like, are they poisonous or they just
They
sting?
just sting. You're not going to die.
They're not
I'm
poisonous.
You're not going to die.
Oh yeah. I'll do that. I'm not eating a cockroach. That's disgusting. Oh, that's so tough. I don't know. I guess I'll take.
I think
at
after
the very
a while
least you feel a little cleaner.
I think after a while you would just get used to the stinging, and then it would just become the norm. And then
I'm just like picturing.
You just
that
wouldn't
now.
even
It
feel it
sucks.
anymore. You'd just be like
Ugh. That's such.
I would.
A hard one.
I would
know.
never eat a cockroach ever in my life. So I'm just gonna go with the.
I
bat.
just feel like the cockroach.
I would never mentally
It's
recover
like a-
from eating a cockroach.
Yeah, it's like a Manhattan cockroach.
I can't even
it's like a
see
dirty
them.
Manhattan.
I don't even want to see
cockroach.
them.
Yeah,
If I ate one,
Ugh,
I would have a
gross.
mental breakdown.
I think that would ruin your
Yeah.
life.
I would never be the same.
Yeah. All right, I agree. All right, wide receivers, good matchup. Terrence Williams, the Dallas wide receiver at Atlanta, or Robert Woods, the Rams wide receiver versus Houston.
I like both these guys, kind of like up and comers. I'll go with Robert Woods. Similar to what I said about Jared Goff, I think the Rams passing offense will have a big day against Houston.
I'm going to go Terrence Williams. I'm assuming Des Bryant's going to be out for 1 week, and their shutdown cornerback, who I'm blanking on his name, doesn't really cover one wide receiver the whole time. He just covers one side of the field.
Yeah.
Trufant, Marcus Trufant, thank you. So I'll take Terrence Williams. I had a really good game, over 140 yards. Moderate matchup, Marquise Lee, the Jacksonville wide receiver versus the Chargers, or Robbie Anderson, the Jets wide receiver at Tampa Bay.
Give me all the Jets, baby. I'll take Robbie Anderson. One thing about Jacksonville's passing offense, I think D.D. Westbrook might be making his NFL debut in the next week or two.
Hot
So
take.
that might downgrade Marquise Lee a little bit.
Yeah, I'll take Robbie Anderson. He's been the mark of consistency the last 4 weeks. He's had, I think, average of like 13 points a week, so I'll take him. And he has really good celebrations, too. Bad matchup, Rashard Matthews, the Tennessee wide receiver versus Cincinnati, or Devin Funchess, the Carolina Panthers wide receiver versus Miami.
Yeah, kind of a similar situation to what we just talked about. I think Corey Davis is coming back for the Titans, and that might see Rashard Matthews have a little bit of a downward dip in production
Trend.
there. Yeah, downward trend. I'll go with Devin Funchess. He's still kind of the only guy in that passing offense, so just based on volume, I'll go with Funchess against Miami.
Yeah, they're both tough matchups, but I agree. Rashard Matthews, like Corey Davis, is going to come into his own, and he was a little hampered this week, and he didn't play a full snap count, but it's only going to get worse for Rashard Matthews. I'm going to take Devin Funchess, the de facto number one guy there.
And the wild card, would you rather... Oh, Sean, you're going to like this one. Would you rather split an Uber with Nicolas Cage, Sean's arch nemesis, or ride a two-person bike with Kellyanne Conway?
Let me start here. I feel like we've made such a big point of me hating Nicolas Cage that I would take the Uber ride with him just for like the story of it. I think it would just be like,
that's what I would do too.
it would just be incredible to be like, all right, I've split an Uber with probably my least favorite actor and one of my top 5 least favorite people on the planet. I'll go with that.
Honestly, I'm just taking the Uber because I don't want to bike. I hate biking.
I hate biking, but I also hate Kellyanne Conway, and I think it'd be way more interesting to ride with Nicolas Cage. Can you imagine riding a two-person bike with Kellyanne Conway, though? Like, she looks tired just, like, living. You know what I mean? Like, imagine her on a bike.
You're doing all the work there.
Yeah, I feel like
she's
you'd
gonna
have to pedal a
be
lot.
like,
Biking
this is
for
fake
two.
news.
I don't know. The Uber, are you paying for the whole... Oh, you're splitting it with Nicolas Cage. It's not as bad. I thought you were going to pay for the
Oh,
whole
he's definitely going to be like, yeah, he's definitely going to be like, oh, my payment didn't go through. Can you do it?
Yeah.
Can you cover
My
it?
payment, I got to steal the Declaration of Independence to pay for this.
He can
Uber.
steal the Declaration of Independence, but he definitely doesn't know how to use an iPhone.
All right, tight ends. Good matchup. Kyle Rudolph at Washington, or Jordan Reed / Vernon Davis, whoever plays and is a starter, versus Minnesota.
Similar to just, what we just talked about with Devin Funchess, I'll go with the volume here. I think whichever Washington tight end plays, obviously if Jordan Reed plays, he's the guy. They're going to get a ton of volume, and I just like that. I think Kirk Cousins is going to bounce back eventually, and I think that he's going to use the tight ends to do it. So I'll go with Jordan Reed or Vernon Davis, whoever winds up being the tight end one. That's the guy I'll play this week.
I'm going to go Rudolph. Washington's tight end defense has been one of the worst in the league. I think it's ranked 29th. And Rudolph is coming off a bye. Hopefully he figured things out with Case Keenum off that bye. I don't know. We haven't really looked this up, but I don't know if Teddy Bridgewater is going to be the starter soon. But Bridgewater loves his tight ends. So whatever way you spin it, I think Kyle Rudolph is going to have a big game here. Moderate matchup, Delaney Walker versus Cincinnati or Jimmy Graham at Arizona.
I actually own Delaney Walker on one of my teams, and he's been, kind of disappointing, but he's starting to bounce back. That being said, Jimmy Graham just has a higher ceiling, and Arizona is, not a good team. So I'll take Jimmy Graham this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go Jimmy Graham too. Delaney Walker is a little banged up. So I agree. I'll go Jimmy Graham at Arizona. Bad matchup, Julius Thomas at Carolina or Tyler Kroft at Tennessee.
Give me Tyler Kroft, baby. This guy, I loved him. I loved him after that breakout game he had a couple weeks ago. Again, Andy Dalton is not been effective all year, but when he is effective, he's using his tight end in the red zone. I think Kroft is, going to keep producing at a steady level and, could eventually find his way into the end zone for a multiple touchdown game. It could be coming this week. So I'll take Tyler Kroft as kind of like a sneaky tight end fill-in guy.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to see more out of Tyler Kroft in week 9 when AJ Green went out for the rest of the game. He had 2 catches and 79 yards, which is pretty good for a tight end. And he's been pretty consistent since Tyler Eifert, the other tight end, went down with injury. But I'll take Tyler Kroft at Tennessee. It's a tough matchup, but Julius Thomas, it just feels like that was like a one-hit wonder there.
And I'm late again with the wild card. Would you rather walk a mile on carpet with melting ice cream cones in each hand or drinks that are too full in each hand?
I have a definite answer for you here. I will walk a mile on the carpet with a melting ice cream cone or 2, as opposed to drinks that are too full. Drinks that are too full, this happens to me all the time. If you take a one step, they start to shift forward and back, and then they start to jump over the edge of the glass. No thanks. I'll go with the melting ice cream cones and just, constant vigilance. You got to have a system when you're eating an ice cream cone. So as long as you're, consistent there and as long as you like ice cream, that's the way you got to go.
I disagree. It's the most annoying thing when an ice cream cone is melting, and I just hate the stickiness on your hands. Drinks that are too full, you're gonna it'll spill on you, but then they're gonna be not as full, and then they're not gonna spill over. You know what I mean?
No, they're perpetually too full.
They're you didn't say that. That's bullshit.
Well, now I said it.
That would change my answer. So the ice cream cone is perpetually melting.
Yeah, you can't avoid the ice cream melting. It's gonna go on your hands and stuff. That's part of the deal.
What kind of drinks is this? Are we talking
could be anything.
Water? Or are we talking
definitely not water. Something that's gonna be annoying if it gets on carpet, like hot chocolate,
like Coca-Cola,
or wine.
Oh, maybe it's hot. Yeah, I'll do the ice cream cones then. I didn't know it was perpetually too full.
Yes,
that's bullshit.
I think I'm probably gonna excuse me. Probably going to go with the ice cream cones, even though I'm going to get really pissed off at the end when my hands are covered in sticky ice cream because the anxiety, anxiety of holding 2 cups that are just too full is it's too much to deal with for a mile.
Yeah.
Walking. Yeah, that's another. I did not
20 minutes.
keep that in
walking
mind.
from the kitchen to the living room with a cup that's too full is enough to send me into a panic attack. But to walk on a mile of carpet, oh, that's a nightmare. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the thing. One thing to keep in mind here, if you have 2 melting ice cream cones, you can walk pretty quickly. Obviously, you got to slow down a little bit. But if you have drinks that are too full, you have to go so slow.
We also
annoying.
yeah, and every step you have to shift your weight. But we didn't talk about how many scoops of ice cream are in each cone though. For some reason I'm imagining just 1 scoop, but what if it was 2 or 3 scoops? Then that would be okay. That would change everything.
I was picturing 2, at least 2, maybe 3. That's what I was just picturing.
That seems almost on par with the drinks. And that at that point, if there's 2 or 3 scoops, that's getting up there.
Oh, they're both so annoying. They're anxiety inducing.
I guess they're really.
All right, let's talk about
there's nothing you can really do about it. I guess.
Go ahead. Sorry. Can I talk? Let's talk about streaming defenses, not ice creams. Streaming ice creams. The Lions are playing the Browns in Week 10. to pick up the Lions. They did pretty well against the Packers. The Patriots are playing at Denver. Denver's offense just looks so off, and Brock Osweiler is starting, and you have to think Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator on the Patriots, are going to figure him out pretty easily. And then the Bears defense is playing the Packers, who didn't look all that good on Monday night against the Lions. So 3 streaming defenses: Lions, Patriots, and Bears. Oh my. All right, last segment for the Week 10 preview. Hail Mary, Fail Mary. We just have one guy in each of these sections. So our Hail Mary for Week 10 is Devontae Booker, the Denver running back, versus New England. Just have a feeling it's going to be a shootout here. Devontae Booker is the pass-catching running back there, like it or hate it. And it feels like they're going to be down early and often, the Denver Broncos. So they're probably going to throw it a ton. In PPR leagues, Devontae Booker is probably a good bet to get 10 points at least and maybe a receiving touchdown.
Yeah, rack up those garbage time points. I definitely like Devontae Booker as a sleeper. Moving forward, CJ Anderson hasn't been great this year. Jamal Charles has kind of been in and out of the lineup. So Booker could easily emerge as the guy here moving forward. So I kind of like him the rest of the year, not just this week. For the Fail Mary, this is a guy that we both kind of are down on, and I think for good reason, because his backup has been lights out. Mark Ingram, New Orleans running back, playing against Buffalo, a tough matchup. Sean McDermott has the Bills playing really good defense, and Kamara is just coming off another great game. I think Mark Ingram's stock is definitely trending down. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I agree. I think he's still running back 1 for us, but this is a really tough matchup, Buffalo. If you look at last week on the Thursday night game, the Jets played Buffalo, and yes, Matt Forte had 2 touchdowns through the rushing, but at the same time, Matt Forte's skill set is more like Kamara than Mark Ingram's is. Matt Forte is the pass catching guy there. Kamara is the pass catching guy, and he was on the field most of the game. Matt Forte was, so I feel like Kamara will be on the field most of that game, and Mark Ingram might be a little forgotten in Week 10 at Buffalo.
And that wraps it up for the week. That was what episode? Episode 21 we're on. Wow, we're getting up
21.
there. Yeah, it's getting up there.
Subscribe.
Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and anywhere else you find the podcasts. We're everywhere. We're on Alexa. I'll ask Alexa right now. Let's see. Alexa, play Oh, she's not on. Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Well, try it on Alexa.
Anyways,
regardless.
Try it on Alexa. Try it on Google. Try it on Facebook. Try it on wherever. And write a review. But most importantly, tell a friend. Share it with your uncle. Share it with your dad. Share it with listen to it with your cat. Listen to it with your dog. When you're pouring your cereal in the morning, turn it on and listen to it, the rest of it when you go to bed. Think about us when you're not listening to it. Not in a creepy way. Don't be like that. What is
Dream
wrong
about
with
us.
you?
Don't be creepy, please.
Oh,
Anyways.
sorry.
God, what is wrong with you guys? Jeez.
Google sponsor us. Facebook sponsor us.
Soylent sponsor us. Hummus sponsor us. Milk sponsor us.
Terra Chips.
Cereal.
Chips, America.
Big Gulp.
All brands.
Big
All
Gulp
brands
sponsor us. 7-Eleven. That's the next deal. All right. Anyways, that's it for the week.
Sponsor us. See you later.
It's been great, guys. Well, see you later.